Hi there. Once again, this is Melanie Stefanis, and I wanted to talk a little bit about my journey through depression and bipolar disorder and why this SoulArt project means so much to me. So, I was in high school. Um, I believe I was probably in freshman year already by the time I started developing some signs of or some feelings of depression. It began with something very small, something that I think might not have taken so much effect on me if it wasn't for the way my mind was hardwired. Everything seemed to be so much bigger in my head than it was. So imagine me, a lot thinner than I am now. And I at 120 pounds at the time. I know, right? uh, I thought I was fat, and ugly, and I started seeing all these other girls, all these other cheerleaders and skinny and pretty girls that I thought were prettier than me. Dating. They started dating all the other boys in my class and in school, and no one had asked me out yet. I tried not to think too much about it, but I started feeling like I was fat and ugly. This idea actually came from an old friend of mine who I had in middle school. When we first became friends, she would keep poking me and calling me fat. I don't know why, and I don't know why we stayed friends, but it really affected me. And it affected me more so as I started to see people pairing off and I wasn't. As I got further into high school, I believe it was the end of my junior year going into senior year, I still had very low self-esteem. My self-esteem was even lower as the time went by, as years went by. And I let it get to me. I'm not sure how or why, but like I said, some minds I think are just hardwired to somehow think the worst of the situation and of themselves, and apparently mine was one of them. Well, over a summer camp, I met this girl, and I didn't think much of. That's not true. I just began thinking a lot about her, and that scared me. All my life, I had known I liked boys. I still liked boys, guys. But I started thinking a lot about her, and we started flirting over text after summer camp let out. We flirted a lot. We texted a lot. At some point, I wasn't able to talk to her anymore because of certain reasons. The bond was no longer allowed to be there. I afterwards felt so much shame. I was brought up as a Christian. For so long, I had tried to deny to myself that I really, really liked her, even loved her. I'd fallen in love with her, and now I couldn't see her anymore. And I felt so much shame. And like I said, I still liked guys, and I thought, no guy's gonna like me if they knew my secret. See, I went to a Christian school where people really did not look well on homosexuality and bisexuality. There were the rare few who did advocate for them, especially in that Christian school. They really advocated for them, and they made me feel safer, but there were very few of them. The majority of the people in my school, the high schoolers and the teachers, it was not even an option. It was not something that was accepted. And that made me scared, as I would see some people, some of the girls, really look down on homosexuality, bisexuality. I remember there was this argument going on between two girls. One of them was advocating for homosexuality, and I was like, wow. It felt good. No one knew my secret. And the other girl was heated about this conversation. She started crying. She said, because what breaks God's heart breaks her heart. And my teacher, my Christian teacher, also started telling us, well, being gay is someone's cross to bear. That you should, if you're gay, I understand that that's something that you feel, but you shouldn't be acting on it because that's your cross. I'm like, that scared me, and that hurt to hear. So I grew so ashamed and so scared that if anyone knew, no one would want me. I had no idea that people out in public schools and around town, yeah, there's a lot of people who say it's wrong, who say it's unnatural. But there's also so many people that accept it, and it's not a big deal. I had no idea that that was a possibility in this school, in this Christian life. And I began to start self-harming from the shame. I started spiraling downward. I slept all day, every day, just so I wouldn't be awake. I wouldn't even be tired or sleepy. I just didn't want to be awake or alive. And so I began self-harming. I didn't want to use a blade or a razor or anything like that. I was too scared to use that because I didn't want my scars to be so prominent. I was afraid if I did, people would find out sooner. So I would use smaller things just to get rid of the edge of my mental pain. It was like if I inflicted harm to my body, then I wouldn't be concentrating on the mental pain so much. And I always got this image in my head that if I was able to cut through the skin, maybe some of the poison in me would just leak out and I'd be better. I knew that wasn't true, but that was the image that I felt in my head. And so I would use any sharp thing I could get my hand on. I would use my keys to saw on my skin. I would use paper clips, anything, anywhere. I began wearing my sweater everywhere. We wore uniforms, so I wore my uniform sweater everywhere, and even in the summer when it was super hot, and I'd have to make sure not to roll up my sleeves. Nobody seemed to notice or realize that this was unusual. Life went on as usual. I laughed at jokes that I couldn't hear or understand because I was somewhere else in my mind. I grew to hate everything and everyone, and I felt so invisible in high school. I was scared to get close to anyone. I remember once when I had 2 friends in my high school. We had a graduating class of about 30-something. It was a small private high school. Everyone knew each other's business. And one day, my 2 friends that I ate lunch with, weren't there today. So I was eating alone, and I felt so awkward and alone. And this group of cheerleaders and jocks invited me to sit with them. And I just sat there quietly eating my lunch the whole time while they conversed with each other. I didn't know what to do. They were actually being nice to me. For the first time, someone was noticing me, even if it wasn't romantic. People were trying to be nice to me. But I didn't allow that to sink in. I just sat there afraid and awkward, thinking how much they would reject me if they knew about me. And everything just hurt. I would sit in the bathroom, in the bathtub, in the shower, and you just let the water run down, feeling like maybe I could wash it all off. And I would spend up to 2 hours in the bathtub just letting the water run cold. My parents would get so mad because I was wasting the warm water. But I just couldn't get out of the bathtub. My body felt exhausted and weak and not my own. After all that, I started having to look at colleges. My grades were alright. They weren't great for like a prestigious university, but I eventually settled on the University of Nevada, Reno. I live in Las Vegas, so it was close enough to my family without being in Vegas, which was nice. I really wanted to get away. I really wanted to get away, and I wanted to run away. I wanted to run from my problems. I wanted to run from the pain. I thought maybe if I left all the memories here in Vegas, it wouldn't be so hard. But it followed me. I spent a few months there pretty okay, making friends. And one day I got a text from a friend who also knew the girl that I had liked, and said that that girl had been asking her about me and if I was okay, and wanted to know if, since I'm no longer at home, oh my goodness, I'd be willing to contact her. So I said sure. I was scared out of my mind, but I went for it, and I said yeah. I really missed her, but I was scared too because of that shame I felt. But we connected again, and we tried to stay just friends. But after a while, I had to admit that feeling didn't go away, and she had said the same thing. So we tried to start dating. Long distance, she was still in Vegas. But things started going wrong again. She wasn't the best partner, the best girlfriend, honestly. I felt like everything that I had wanted, everything I thought we had, just wasn't there anymore. I felt like I bothered her. She was always angry at me. There were good times. I'll admit, there were times when we texted and it felt really good and it felt right. But more often than not, I couldn't say anything right. It just hurt. And I started feeling sad and angry again. And at some point, she dumped me because I was too clingy. I found out later that the real reason was because she'd never dated a girl who claimed to be straight before, and that kind of scared her. And I can validate that. I can't blame her for that. That's probably pretty scary for anyone who preferably likes girls the same sex, and someone's over here, and how do you know they're not just trying to experiment with you? I get that. But at the time, she made me feel like I was a burden, like I could do no right. Eventually, I met this boy not too long after we broke up, and he was really sweet to me. He could be there are times he could be kind of an asshole, but he treated me really well. I'd never been treated that way. And he was romantic and he spoiled me. And I started to feel happy again. As we started dating more and more, I became clingier and clingier. 3 years into our relationship, and I was the crazy, clingy girlfriend. I was up and down and all over the place. Now, granted, I forgot to mention, in high school, when I was 18, after I stopped talking to that girl, I had been diagnosed with depression. I had been having suicidal thoughts. I admitted to my therapist after about a few months that I did want to kill myself. She had mentioned at the beginning, she asked me at the beginning of our sessions, do you feel like you want to do harm to yourself? My mom and dad had forced me to go to therapy. I didn't want to go, so I lied to the therapist. I said no because I didn't trust her. I didn't know this woman. But months later, I said, yeah, I had lied. And so I'm sorry I'm backpedaling. I had skipped this part, but my parents were pulled in to the therapist's office, and I remember the therapist telling them, if you don't admit her into this mental hospital that she was suggesting, she will not last 2 weeks. She already has a plan. I had a plan. And I think she was right. At the time, I was so hopeless. I was so ashamed. So the next day, I was admitted into the mental hospital, and I spent a week there. And it was one of the hardest weeks I had to endure because I felt so like I had hit rock bottom. The people there were nice. The other patients, they were nice. But I felt like I had failed as a person. I had failed at living like a normal person. I was a wreck. I was someone that no one would definitely ever want if they found out. So that was also a secret I kept until I started dating this boy. I eventually told him that that's what happened to me, that I had ended up in a mental hospital over this whole ordeal. And he still liked me. So yeah, 3 years later, I was all over the place mentally. We only knew that I was depressed, but we didn't know why some days I'd be insanely depressed and why other days I was kind of okay. It was ridiculous. I drove him crazy. I suffocated him. I'll admit that. That's not something that it's something that he admitted, but it wasn't lightly. It wasn't that I was just being crazy. I was suffocated. I knew it. I'd call him like 20 times in 5 minutes because he was napping and I was afraid he was leaving me. I was paranoid that he would leave me. And we had a really rough patch because of it. So I was going to therapy. I slowly began to try and back off. We were still dating, But I trained myself to text him less, but I still inside was really scared and had so much anxiety all the time. It was a few years later when I went to another therapist. I'd gone through a couple therapists due to insurance reasons. But this particular therapist had mentioned that she believed I had bipolar disorder. Everything I said was indicative of bipolar disorder. Some days, and she could see it. She could see certain days when I was sky high and everything was perfect and I was charismatic and nothing was wrong. And I was genuinely in the moment. I thought everything was right with the world. And other days I come in and I wanted to die. I couldn't take it. I couldn't take my own mind. And I couldn't figure out why. And so I went to the psychiatrist and he did diagnose me with bipolar disorder. So he got me off the medication from depression. As he told me, if you have developed bipolar disorder, taking pills, taking medication specifically for depression will oftentimes make it worse. So he prescribed me different pills and we were adjusting different pills for my bipolar disorder. I loved my psychiatrist, same guy. I know a lot of people advocate for not taking medication for mental illness, and that's fine. I'm not gonna say that you have to take medication. If it works for you, that's fine. But if you find yourself trying everything but medication, trying everything but a psychiatrist and a therapist, and you're still spiraling, I would say get some kind of help. Please find a therapist, and if necessary, if you feel comfortable, I would highly suggest a psychiatrist because the medication has really helped me lately. I'll get to that. So after I started seeing the psychiatrist and told my boyfriend that I had been diagnosed with bipolar disorder, everything started to make kind of more sense. He gave me a lot more patience, and I started feeling like it wasn't all my fault, which was better. But I still went through patches that it got worse. I went through patches where the highs and lows. Like I said, the highs were great. I felt charismatic. I could do everything that I wanted to do. I could be productive, and I would make goals. I would make these huge, delusional, grandeur goals, and make a list of all of them and say, I'm gonna finish this by the end of the month. Like, they weren't. I can't remember what the goals were, but I remember them being beyond possible for where I was at that moment. And let's see, I began feeling the lows really hard. They became, I wondered why I felt these lows, because I had a okay life. Now that I was no longer with that girl, not that I was I never finished college, but I was at home again. My parents were taking care of me they were taking care of me, and I didn't have a particularly hard life. My parents and I will admit, didn't have the best of relationship at the time. On both sides, it was kind of both our faults, I'd say, but other than that, my life was fine. I wasn't in too much of a troubled home. I wasn't coming from poverty. I wasn't, all those things that people say would cause depression. I didn't have. But there were days when I just could not move. I would feel, I wouldn't hear, but it was like I could feel that white noise, like when your TV does the white noise. It was in my head and it was so loud. I couldn't even hear myself think. Or some days I could be totally fine. And I remember in a moment, at any moment, and I remember specifically a Christmas gathering I was at just a couple years ago with my boyfriend. Actually, he was my fiance at that point. With my fiance, that we were over at his house. His family was there. Mom, I believe his dad, a friend of the family, his brother, his brother's fiance, and we were having fun. We were playing a game. I can't remember what game, and we were laughing, and I was laughing, and then suddenly the switch inside like just turned off. I couldn't feel anything anymore all of a sudden, and it got so scary. I felt like I was detached from the situation. I could hear people laughing and talking, but I couldn't process what was happening. So I'd laugh. It was a very hollow laugh. I could feel that it was something I had to force because I didn't want anyone to know that I wasn't really there. Mentally, I felt like it would. Sorry. This is a very scary moment. I felt like all of a sudden I was alone in this very dark place. Just this pitch black void. And I could hear distant laughing and talking, and that was the family around me, but I could not interact. And it was terrifying. I had become detached. And my fiance could see it. As I was leaving to go home, I told him, I can't do this. I want to die. It hurts. My mind is hurting me. And I don't know what to do. I just wanted to stop hurting. See, my life wasn't a bad one, but my mind was hurting so bad. I didn't know what else to do. I just wanted to escape it. And he was scared for me. Then, about a month later, I started experiencing a high. I was working at a call center at the time, and I was doing so well. And I was experiencing this amazing high. I was killing the calls. I was amazing. But then around February, I started getting bad again. And then in March, a day before my birthday, I could not take how bad my mind was. So I called my boss. He knew that I had bipolar by this time. I had warned him that sometimes I have to be in the bathroom for a while because I'm experiencing a panic attack or something. And he was perfectly okay with it because my calls were so good. He was like, "You're doing a great job. I can't deny that. You need some time to yourself." So he was fine with it. But one day I texted my boss and said, I can't come in. I don't know when I'll be coming in, but I am going to see my psychiatrist, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to go be in a mental hospital for at least a week, maybe more. I don't know. Because I was going to check myself in. So I called my husband, my fiance at the time still, told him to meet me at the psychiatrist's office because I didn't want to be alone. When I told my psychiatrist that I needed to get checked in. And I hated that it was the day before my birthday. I wanted to celebrate my birthday with my fiance. That wasn't going to happen. And we were both really sad when they took me away that day to go to the same mental hospital that I had been in at 16. But this time I didn't feel like I had failed as much. I just felt like I was getting help. See, the mental hospital isn't so much a cure-all, but I was only seeing my psychiatrist once a month. It was all that I could see him for, all I could afford to see him once a month to make sure that my meds were okay. But I couldn't wait between each month to adjust the medication if they weren't okay. I just couldn't. But I knew that in the mental hospital, it's a holding place basically. They hold you there while they adjust your medications to the correct dose. And they keep you there for at least a week while they basically, they fix your medications. So I got my medication improved during that week. And I started feeling better. It wasn't perfect though. I'd say for the next year or so, I went on and off between a good day, a really freaking good day, and a really bad days. I sometimes still felt that detachment feeling, and those days were scary. Those days were so scary. I tried to drown myself in the bathtub and took some Xanax, but each time I still had enough hope to think things would get better. I think that's the thing, is when you're hopeless and you're absolutely hopeless, there's nothing holding you back. But when there is even a little spark of hope, you think something could be better, and I'm afraid to miss out on it. Recently, I've been doing really well. My medications are doing wonders for me. They're at the right dosages, they're at the right combination. It feels really good. I want to talk about the integration of art into my soul, into my, what do you call it? My journey with mental health, because I was all over the place in this, and I forgot to mention the whole reason why I love and I need to make this SoulArt project. So when I was in the mental hospital that first time around, we had an art therapist there. It was my last day there, and he taught us art therapy. Basically, he gave us projects. There was a project at each table we could choose one, and each one kind of had a different meaning. But not all of them did. You can color a picture. You could draw a picture, or one of them was a mask. You can make a mask out of paper. And it was so much fun. Like, it felt good to make something that I could be proud of. And I took that. After I got out, I would start drawing. I would put on my favorite sad songs. So I put on a lot of Linkin Park and Skillet, Evanescence, the Rasmus, anything sad that made me feel like I wasn't alone, that spoke to what I was feeling. And I would draw. I would illustrate that song. And I think that's kind of one of the things I really want to show people, is the usage of the integration of music as well as art. How music speaks to the soul, and art can be the result of your feelings on that. And a lot of my drawings were so sad and so depressing, but I would still tape them to all around my wall. And so my wall became a gallery of just my drawings. And my mom would walk in and be like, these drawings are so sad. And I'm thinking, and I told her, I know, but they're mine. And I'm really proud of them. I'm really proud that these are results of my ugly feelings, but they're still really, in my opinion, beautiful. Today, I do still use art therapy on myself. I have a little art journal, and sometimes I'll make drawings of what I'm feeling inside, whether it's happy or really sad. I've illustrated my own personal monsters and demons that have haunted me. I've given them a face, I've given them words, and then I talk to them right back. And it's really helped me so much to keep my hands busy, to keep my mind, to empty my mind of the pain. Usually when I make a drawing of one of the monsters in my brain, I no longer paste it or tape it to the walls. What I do is I like to draw, and a lot of times it's scary and dark. So I put those in a box. I keep them, but I put them in a box and put them away so that the next one can do the same thing. And it keeps them safe and away from mine. So I just out of sight, out of mind until the next time. That's one of my techniques. But lately, everything's been really good. Like I said, my meds are great. My art therapy, for me, I'm not an art therapist. I just really believe in the power of therapeutic art, and that's what I want to bring everyone. So I'm really sorry that I skipped around on my story. I'm really bad at telling stories. I know this was 40 minutes of me just talking about my story and all over the place, but needless to say, I want to tell you that art really helped me so much. I was no longer hurting myself. I was purging my mind of all the sad and hurtful thoughts and putting them on the paper. Like I said, well, even till recently, I still had those detachment episodes, those depressing episodes, but with the correct medications, I've been so much better. I know that the journey's not over, that there will be bad days again, and there will be good days. But I've got art with me, I've got drawing with me, I've got a wonderful husband now who's been with me through it all. And please, if you feel like you're in a very depressive mode, I urge you to seek help. I'll put the phone number for the suicide hotline on the bottom in the bio, or in the description, sorry. And I do urge you to find help, whether it's a therapist, an art therapist, or a psychiatrist. But it's been quite the journey, which is why this is 40 minutes, so I do apologize. Thank you so much for listening. It means the world to me. And in a couple weeks, I should be back with a project, an art project that you can follow along with. I'll find a good one that's simple, and we'll have some fun doing some therapeutic art. So thank you for listening. Thank you for sticking with me. And I hope you have a fantastic day.